The day I moved in with David, I heard scratching under our bed. He said it was just mice. Last night, I found a locket with a woman's photo, the same woman from his phone wallpaper. When I asked who she was, he whispered, "My dead ex-girlfriend." Before you hit that subscribe button, lock your doors and check under your bed. This twisted true story will make you question whether you really know the person sleeping beside you. Stay until the end to discover the shocking truth about what was really under that bed. Moving day was supposed to be the start of our fairy tale. After dating David for just 8 months, friends called us crazy, but when you know, you know. His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and he carried my boxes like they weighed nothing. That first night in our new place, he cooked pasta and we drank cheap wine under string lights on our tiny balcony. I remember thinking I'd never been so happy. David was everything I'd dreamed of. Attentive, successful, and so in love with me it was almost overwhelming. He'd leave little notes in my lunch bag and send flowers to my office for no reason. My coworkers would roll their eyes, but I could see the envy behind their smiles. We'd spend weekends exploring hidden trails or cuddled on the couch with his arm protectively around me. I thought I knew everything about him. 3 weeks after moving in, I heard it for the first time. A faint scratching sound coming from somewhere beneath our bed. It woke me around 3 a.m., that hollow hour when the world feels paper thin. "David," I whispered, nudging him awake. "There's something under the bed." He startled violently, eyes wide with what looked like fear, but he quickly composed himself. "Just mice," he mumbled, pulling me close. "Old building. I'll set traps tomorrow." But he never did. I started noticing other things. How he'd tense up when certain songs played. How he'd sometimes stare at his phone with this haunted expression before quickly changing his lock screen when he saw me watching. One day, while looking for batteries in his desk drawer, I found a stack of photos rubber-banded together. A woman with long, dark hair and striking green eyes smiled back at me. In every picture, she was with David, looking at him like he hung the moon. That night, I placed the photos on the kitchen counter. When David saw them, all color drained from his face. "Who is she?" I asked. He sat heavily, shoulders slumped. "Lily," he finally said, voice cracking. "My ex. She died last year. Car accident on Route 16. His hands trembled as he carefully returned the photos to their hiding place. "I should have told you sooner. I can't talk about it." I believed him then. But some nights David would thrash in his sleep, muttering things that made my skin crawl. "Lily, please," he'd whisper. "I'm sorry, so sorry." And sometimes when the scratching came from under our bed, his eyes would fly open in the darkness, and I'd catch this look. Not of confusion or fear, but of recognition. Like he was expecting it, waiting for it. And suddenly our perfect little home felt like it was hiding something terrible just beneath the surface. The more comfortable I got in our home, the more it seemed to reject me. I'd find things moved when neither of us had touched them. One morning I discovered a prescription bottle tucked behind the bathroom mirror. Clonazepam, prescribed to L. Wilson. When I showed it to David, he snatched it away, claiming it was for his mother during her last visit. But his mother's name is Catherine, not anything starting with L. Strange items began appearing around the house. A hair clip I'd never seen before on the edge of the tub, a bracelet with tiny blue stones in the couch cushions. Each time I'd show David, he'd explain them away. The clip belonged to a coworker who'd stopped by. The bracelet was something he'd bought for me but forgotten to give. His explanations made sense individually, but together they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. David started staying late at work, sometimes not coming home until after midnight. When I'd call, background noises never matched his stories about meetings or client dinners. He'd return smelling of unfamiliar perfume, claiming it was from the restaurant hostess who'd hugged him. I began keeping a journal of his excuses, each one more elaborate than the last. At a barbecue with his friends, I casually mentioned Lily's accident. The entire group fell silent. Mike, David's closest friend, nearly choked on his beer. "What did he tell you exactly?" he asked when David was out of earshot. Before he could say more, David returned, and Mike quickly changed the subject. On our drive home, David gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "What were you and Mike talking about?" he demanded. I lied, saying sports. That night, the scratching under our bed was louder than ever. Mrs. Patel from next door stopped me one afternoon as I brought in groceries. "Your sister visits often," she said with a smile. "Such a quiet girl, always coming when you're both at work." I froze, groceries dangling from my hands. I don't have a sister. When I told Mrs. Patel this, her face crinkled in confusion. "But I've seen her. Thin girl, long dark hair, always using the spare key from under the flower pot." "We don't keep a spare key under any flower pot." That night, I waited until David fell asleep before slipping out of bed to use his laptop. I searched for accident reports from Route 16 last year. Nothing about anyone named Lily. I tried Lily Wilson and Lillian Wilson in obituaries. Nothing. I searched David's email using her name and found nothing recent. But in his archived folders, I discovered dozens of exchanges between them from 2 years ago. The last one, from Lily, sent chills through me. "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving tomorrow. Please don't try to find me." The next day, I followed a strange draft to its source in our basement. Behind a shelving unit, I found the edges of what looked like a door, painted to match the wall. As I ran my fingers along the seam, I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me. "What are you doing down here?" David asked, his voice eerily calm. I lied about looking for Christmas decorations, but the way he stared at me, like he was calculating something, made me realize I wasn't safe anymore. Whatever secret lived in our house, it was waking up, and so was I. The scratching had become a nightly visitor, like clockwork at 2:38 a.m. I started sleeping on the couch, telling David it was because of his snoring. In truth, I couldn't bear being near that bed anymore. One night, when David was working late, I dragged the mattress onto the floor and examined the bed frame. Nothing unusual, just wooden springs. But when I pressed my cheek against the floorboards beneath, I felt a slight current of air. I tapped across the boards until I heard it. A hollow sound, different from the rest. A trap door, cleverly disguised within the pattern of the hardwood. I couldn't open it. No visible handle, and it seemed secured from below. But now I knew. Our bedroom floor was someone else's ceiling. David's behavior grew increasingly controlling. He started bringing me tea every night, insisting it would help me sleep. The tea had a bitter aftertaste despite the honey he'd stir in. After drinking it one night, I woke up 14 hours later with no memory of falling asleep. My body felt leaden, my thoughts fuzzy. That's when I noticed a small bruise on my inner arm, like a needle mark. I started pouring the tea into a potted plant when he wasn't looking. One night, pretending to be deeply asleep, I watched through nearly closed eyes as David got out of bed and knelt on the floor. He tapped a complex pattern on the boards. 3 short, 2 long, pause, 1 short, and the trapdoor I discovered lifted slightly. He slid his fingers into the gap and raised it further. The smell that wafted up was sickly, a combination of unwashed body, medication, and something else. Despair, if it had a scent. "I brought more food," David whispered into the darkness below. "The medicine, too. Take it now, while I'm here." There was no response, just a faint rustling sound. "Lily, please. It's for your own good. You know what happens when you don't take it." His voice was tender, the way he used to speak to me during our early days. A thin, trembling hand emerged from the darkness. Skin so pale it was nearly translucent. Fingernails long and cracked. David placed pills in the palm and closed the fingers over them. "Good girl," he murmured. The next day, I ransacked the house while David was at work, looking for any clue about what was happening. In his closet, behind a false panel in the back wall, I found a journal bound in worn leather. The entries spanned 3 years, starting with loving descriptions of Lily and their relationship, then growing increasingly possessive. "She tried to leave again today," one entry read. "Doesn't she understand? We're meant to be together. Forever means forever." The final entries chilled my blood. Day 414 in the special room. Lily's trying to communicate with scratching now. Progress. And more recently, Emma's getting suspicious. Might need to introduce her to the family plan sooner than expected. 2 is better than 1 anyway. I heard David's car in the driveway and barely had time to return the journal and compose myself. When he walked in, carrying flowers and wearing that charming smile, I forced myself to act normal. "I thought we could stay in tonight," he said, pulling 2 wine glasses from the cabinet. "Just the 2 of us." As he turned to open the wine, I saw him slip something from his pocket into one of the glasses. That night, I pretended to drink the wine, pretended to get sleepy, pretended to fall into a deep sleep. Through slitted eyes, I watched as David pulled out his phone and texted someone, "She'll be ready soon, just like we planned with Elle." Then he opened the trap door again and descended into the darkness below our bed. I heard muffled conversation, a woman's weak protests, then silence. When David emerged an hour later, his shirt had dark stains that looked like blood. He slipped back into bed beside me, and I felt his hand gently stroke my hair. "Soon," he whispered, thinking I couldn't hear. "Soon you'll both be with me forever." I needed proof, not just for anyone else, for myself, because despite everything I'd seen, a small part of me still couldn't believe the man I'd fallen in love with was capable of such monstrosity. While David was at work the next day, I set up my phone to record video, wedging it between the baseboard and wall, lens pointed at the underside of our bed. I bought a prepaid phone too, keeping it charged and hidden in the lining of my winter coat. Whatever happened next, I needed a lifeline to the outside world. That night, I took David's sleeping tea and pretended to drift off. I heard him get up around midnight, tapping his familiar pattern on the floor. The trap door opened and David disappeared below. This time he stayed down longer, almost 2 hours. When he returned, he smelled of antiseptic and sweat. I waited another hour after his breathing evened into sleep before carefully retrieving my phone. With shaking hands, I locked myself in the bathroom and pressed play. The footage was dark, but movement was clearly visible. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the floorboards shifted. Slowly, painfully, they lifted upward. A hand emerged, skeletal, dirty fingernails, wrist bone protruding. Then an arm, shoulder, and finally a face. The sight knocked the air from my lungs. Her hair hung in matted clumps around a face so gaunt that her eyes seemed to bulge from their sockets. She moved like something feral, crawling inch by agonizing inch from her prison. This was Lily, not dead, but something between living and gone. She dragged herself across our bedroom floor to David's nightstand, stealing one of the protein bars he kept there, then to our bathroom where she drank from the faucet like a wounded animal. Before retreating, she paused at my side of the bed, staring at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Was it warning, pity, hatred? Then she disappeared back beneath the floor, pulling the trap door closed behind her. The next morning, I couldn't look at David without my stomach turning. He noticed something was off, kept asking if I was feeling well. "Just tired," I said. "Weird dreams." He studied my face a moment too long, then suggested I take the day off work. "I'll stay home too," he said. "Take care of you." The thought of being alone with him made my skin crawl, but I needed answers. I agreed. After breakfast, I gathered my courage. "David," I said, reaching for his hand across the table, "I've been having these dreams about a woman living under our bed, someone named Lily." His face went completely blank, a mask dropping into place. "Dreams can be so vivid," he said flatly, "but they're just dreams." "Then who's this?" I asked, holding up my phone with the paused video, showing Lily's face in the darkness of our room. David lunged for the phone, but I pulled back. "Who is she, David? And why is she living under our floor?" Something broke behind his eyes. He slumped into a chair, suddenly looking smaller. "You weren't supposed to know yet," he whispered. "Not until I was sure you'd understand." "Understand what? That you kidnapped your ex-girlfriend? That you've been keeping her prisoner?" "No, no, no," he said, voice rising. "You don't get it. I saved her. She was going to leave me, just walk away from everything we built together." His eyes were wild now, pleading. "People don't just get to leave, Emma. Love is forever. I promised her forever, and she promised me. So you faked her death? Told everyone she died in an accident while you kept her locked away?" David smiled, an expression so twisted it barely resembled happiness. "It was perfect, actually. Her parents lived overseas. No close friends except mine. A few calls, a fake obituary. People forget so quickly. And Lily learned her lesson. She knows now that we belong together. She's sick, David. She needs help." "I take care of her," he shouted, standing so suddenly his chair crashed to the floor. "I feed her, give her medicine. I read to her every night, and she's getting better. Soon she'll understand, just like you will. He stepped toward me, reaching for my arm. Don't you see, Emma? I chose you to join our family. Most people get one great love in their lifetime. I found a way to have two. I backed away, but he caught my wrist. It's okay to be scared at first. Lily was too, but once the adjustment period is over, you'll be happy. We'll be happy. All three of us. Together. Forever. His grip tightened painfully. I already prepared your room next to hers. It's time for you to meet your new sister. The secret to surviving a nightmare is simple. Make the monster believe you've surrendered. So when David pulled me toward the trapdoor, I stopped resisting. You're right, I whispered, forcing myself to meet his eyes. I'm just surprised. Show me. I want to understand. The suspicion in his face softened to relief, then pride. He believed me because he wanted to, because in his twisted mind, this was love. The space beneath our bedroom was larger than I'd imagined, a cramped but carefully constructed room with no windows. A thin mattress lay in one corner, a chemical toilet in another. The walls were covered with photographs, David and Lily in happier times, interspersed with more recent pictures of her in captivity. Most disturbing were the newest additions, photos of me, sleeping. David had been documenting me for months, preparing my place in his collection. Lily huddled in the corner, eyes wild with fear when the trapdoor opened. Up close, she was barely recognizable as the vibrant woman from the old photos. Skin stretched taut over bones, lips cracked from dehydration, hair falling out in patches. Only her eyes remained alive, burning with a hatred so pure it transcended her physical decay. Lily, meet Emma, David said cheerfully, as if introducing friends at a dinner party. Emma's going to join our family. Isn't that wonderful? Lily said nothing, just watched me with those burning eyes. I'll let you two get acquainted while I prepare dinner, David said, squeezing my shoulder possessively. Emma, I know this is an adjustment, but you'll learn to love it here, just like Lily did. He kissed my forehead, then climbed back up, closing the trapdoor behind him. I heard a lock click into place. The moment he was gone, I rushed to Lily. I'm going to get us out, I whispered. She recoiled from my touch, suspicious. Of course, how many times had David made similar promises? I pulled out the prepaid phone I'd hidden in my sleeve. Her eyes widened. I need to know how to open the trapdoor from this side, I said. Is there a way? Slowly, understanding dawned on her face. She nodded, then crawled to the trapdoor. Beneath the edge was a small notch, invisible from above. He strengthened the main lock, she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. But he doesn't know I've been working on the hinges. She showed me where she'd been gradually loosening the screws using a metal spoon handle, filing it to a point against the concrete floor over months. How long has he kept you here? I asked. 2 years, 3 months, 16 days, she answered without hesitation. He comes down every night, watches me take the pills. But I've been hiding them. She pulled out a small hole in the mattress, revealing dozens of pills, waiting for my chance. We worked quickly, Lily explaining David's routines, his security measures, the layout of the house from her fractured memories. He's obsessed with having us both, she told me. He calls it his perfect family. But something changed recently. He's been impatient, talking about accelerating the plan. We heard David's footsteps above, moving toward the trapdoor. I barely had time to hide the phone before the lock clicked. Dinner time, he called cheerfully, lowering a tray with 3 plates. I thought we could have our first family meal together. He descended with alarming agility, bringing a folding chair. Isn't this nice? He asked, setting up the chair and gesturing for me to sit. Just the 3 of us, finally together. I played along, eating the pasta he'd prepared, complimenting his cooking. Lily followed my lead, docile and agreeable for perhaps the first time in her captivity. David was elated, talking rapidly about his plans for us. I'm thinking of expanding the space, he said, gesturing to the walls. We could have a proper living area, maybe even a small garden nook with special lights. That sounds wonderful, I said, reaching for his hand. But David, wouldn't it be better if we could all be upstairs together? If we promised to stay, couldn't we live like a normal family? His expression darkened. We tried that with Lily. She ran the first chance she got. He stroked my cheek. The adjustment period is hardest at the beginning. You'll see. That night, David left Lily locked below, but took me back upstairs, convinced I was accepting my fate. He handcuffed one of my wrists to the bed frame. Just until you're adjusted, before taking his sleeping pill and drifting off. The moment his breathing slowed, I reached for the paperclip I'd palmed during dinner, working it into the handcuff lock as I'd seen in countless movies. It actually worked. I slipped from bed and retrieved a kitchen knife I'd hidden under a loose floorboard earlier that day. Then I returned to the bedroom and performed David's special knock on the trapdoor. Together, Lily and I pushed against the weakened hinges until they gave way with a sickening crack. David jolted awake as Lily emerged from below like a vengeful ghost. "What?" he began, but froze when he saw the knife in my hand. "Emma, don't do this. You don't understand what she made me do." "I understand everything," I said, keeping the knife steady. "Call the police, confess, and maybe you'll get help instead of prison." He lunged suddenly, not at me but at Lily, hands wrapping around her throat. "You turned her against me," he screamed. I rushed forward, but Lily was quicker, fueled by years of rage. She drove her sharpened spoon handle into his thigh. David howled, releasing her to clutch his bleeding leg. We used that moment to run. Outside, the night air hit Lily like a physical blow, her first taste of freedom in years. We made it to my car, but David staggered onto the porch, blood streaming down his leg. "You can't leave me," he screamed. "We promised forever." He lurched toward us as I fumbled with the keys. Lily suddenly pushed past me, running back toward the house. "Lily, no!" I cried, thinking she'd lost her mind. But she wasn't returning to David. She was circling behind him. As he focused on me, she shoved him with surprising strength. David toppled backward, crashing through the rotting porch railing and disappearing into the darkness below. The basement access we'd never used, its doors long decayed. His scream ended with a sickening thud. Then silence. We called the police from the prepaid phone. They found David's body in the basement, impaled on his own tools. They found Lily's room, the photographs, the journal detailing his obsession. It was over. 3 months later, I visited Lily in the rehabilitation center. Her physical recovery was remarkable. Hair growing back, weight returning, color in her cheeks. We sat in the garden, sunlight warming our faces. "What will you do now?" I asked her. She smiled, a small, private expression. "Start over, somewhere new where nobody knows me." She reached for my hand. "You should do the same, Emma. Get far away from here." Something in her tone made me look closer. In her eyes, I saw a familiar intensity, a possessiveness I'd come to recognize. "You visited 3 times this week," she continued. "The nurses tell me you call every day to check on me." "I just want to make sure you're okay," I said, suddenly uneasy. Her grip on my hand tightened. "We've been through something extraordinary together, Emma. A bond like that, it's special. Some might say it's forever." Her smile widened, showing teeth. "Don't worry, I'll find you when I get out. After all, we're family now." As I pulled my hand away, I realized with horrible clarity that the room beneath our bed had housed more than one monster, and the surviving one knew exactly where I slept. If this story kept you awake at night, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to check their crawl space. Subscribe now for more terrifying true stories that will make you sleep with the lights on. And remember, always look under your bed before you sleep.